In 2022, Republic Services filed 196 lawsuits against Nevada residents. Why? Unpaid bills and late fees from up to 19 years ago. And get this, if the homeowners don't pay, then they could lose their homes. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I chat with Nevada Current reporter Michael Lyle. He just wrote a story about a resident who's fighting one of these lawsuits and the Nevada law that makes this all possible. It's Tuesday, March 21st. I'm Vogue Robinson, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Good morning, MJ. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you, Vogue?
Doing okay. I'm glad the weekend came to its culmination, and I'm trying to just get into a groove.
We are in spring officially, but it does not feel like spring.
Right, for sure. So, as we get into spring, we're also getting to, just the drama of the year is unfolding. And so I want to hear from you. Can you tell us about Rebecca Gandara and her experience with Republic Services?
Absolutely. So actually, the story kind of began late in 2022. I actually got an email from someone saying that their family members were getting a lien from Republic Services for unpaid trash bill. And it was just kind of a financial bind. And because of everything happening in 2022 as election season, it was something that I had put on my radar, but had to not pursue the story at that moment. But when I came back into 2023, it was something that I wanted to look into. So I'd reached out to the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada and asked them, hey, is this something that you've heard about before? I also kind of looked around and saw some reporting in 2021 from the Review Journal about the increase in liens. And so legal aid said, yes, we are definitely seeing more people getting liens and actually facing foreclosure because of unpaid trash bills. And so they connected me with a woman named Rebecca who has a lien against her and is facing foreclosure as we speak right now. Rebecca supposedly owes $13,000, $3,000 probably attorney fees. But the thing that's unique about her story, which legal aid said is kind of uncommon for a lot of stories, is she can't really get any documentation of the actual bill of what she owes. She's heard that it's from sometime between 2004 and 2012. Hey, Vogue, do you remember what bills you paid in 2004?
Sure don't. I was like, they're in my email somewhere, maybe, but that's what's crazy. It's like, I feel like other bills, like with other public utilities, if you don't pay those bills, they'll just stop the service. They don't put a lien on your home and basically give you like a little notice like, hey, pay or quit, pay or get out. So why is trash pickup different?
So that's something a part of our state statute. So many decades ago, put into state statute that allows for property liens for non-payment of trash service, so that Republic Services essentially could put a lien on your property if you're not paying your trash. And once that lien is recorded, they could file a lawsuit or an attempt to foreclose on your property. So that was put in our statute many years ago. And so that's kind of the mechanism that allows for them to do this.
I'm familiar with that, but the fact of I've seen it happen where if you're selling a house, as the sale happens, they'll take their cut from the sale. And so at least then there's a chunk of change.
Republic Services, they're going to recoup their money no matter what. Once they record the lien with Clark County, they'll get their money no matter what. Once that home is refinanced, once that home is sold, they can get that money whenever they want. I think the question is, what mechanisms are they putting in place? What's the process Republic Services is putting in place to notify people about unpaid trash bills before they record a lien and certainly before they file a lawsuit to foreclose on their homes?
Right, because that is the question, is what part of this law applies to how they can take these steps? So I guess, can you tell me more about how this law in Nevada works?
So you don't pay your trash bill for what other reason. Maybe you forgot. How many times something happens, life happens, human beings are busy, especially these last couple of years. Things happen. You might forget to pay a bill. If that amounts to a certain amount of bills unpaid for Republic Services, they can record a lien with Clark County. And once that lien is recorded, they can file a lawsuit. According to legal aid, the law doesn't specify a course of action of how they notify people before the lien. Obviously, once a lien is recorded, you are sent a notice. Rebecca, in this case, said that she missed the notice or never got a notice. Again, you're receiving so much
Mm-hmm.
paperwork in the mail, things get lost in the mail. I live in an area of town where my mail gets broken into quite often too. So
Oh my
there is a
gosh.
lot of nuances. And so I think that's kind of the frustration of the story. And again, I reached out to Republic Services to try to track down some of these questions of how do you notify people and what happens if people aren't seeing notifications, and what about just the general life of like people missing things and mail just gets lost? Like there's a lot of unanswered questions I'd love to wrestle to the ground, but it's hard to wrestle those to the ground when Republic Services just doesn't want to talk. So
Right. Because I read their statement and I I love it. Let me pull it up. So Public Services statement, they were like, well, we're required to continue providing solid waste and recycling collection services, even if payment has not been made. To me, if I'm translating that, if I'm the anger translator, then it's okay, look, we keep doing our jobs, okay? And regardless of whether or not somebody is working, somebody is picking up this trash, period. So that's what we're doing. And then the second half of their statement was, unfortunately, there are times when customers' accounts become overdue to the point that Republic must exercise its authority to impose a property lien in order to ensure eventual payment for the services rendered, they wrote. At this time, and due to pending litigation, we are unable to respond further to your specific inquiry. Which is, we're in the middle of suing someone, so none of your business. Don't worry. Like our lawyers have kept us from putting this information out there.
but not even just someone. I think the one thing that we forgot to mention is the fact that they had 196 lawsuits in 2022, which is a
Wow.
drastic increase. So a few years before, they were having like less than 50 lawsuits, and now we're at 196 just in 2022. And so what's alarming attorneys at Legal Aid is how this is ramping up. And again, I sent a question
Mm-hmm.
to Republic Services about why they've chosen to do this now, opposed to past years where they haven't seen the sheer amount of lawsuits. Why now? Why they're doing this? And why are they looking at older accounts? Even though Rebecca, again, her infraction, that from what she can obtain, she still hasn't received documentation, but what she has been able to find out is the fact that it's between 2004 2012. Legal Aid, they only deal with like a handful of clients that are doing this, but they're saying most of the clients that they're seeing don't realize that they owe something to Republic Services until these lawsuits. And so for some
Oh.
reason, they're not aware until the lawsuit. And that's actually a couple of emails that I got from people too after the fact, after the story ran, just people saying, oh yeah, this happened to me. I had a much more pleasant experience trying to get things from Republic Services. But yeah, I didn't realize I had a lien or had anything until after the fact, because of course I would have paid my trash bill.
Mm-hmm. It's like, finding out you owe money, but it's not a piece of paper that says you owe money. It's here's a lien, and you might need
Yeah.
to get out of your house because you haven't paid this bill in X number of years. From your perspective, why do you think the number of Republic Service lawsuits has increased so much? Like, what's your personal take?
I think the cynical response would be like, because there's no mechanism to stop them.
Ooh, because
So
they can.
also,
Okay.
yeah, because they can. Like, that's such a cynical take. And again, I've reached out to Republic Service. I'm going to say this so many times throughout this episode, but I've reached out and I can only go off what I know. And if I'm asking you questions and you're not filling in the gaps, like I have to report on what I know. But so my cynical answer and my simple answer is there's no mechanism to stop them. When I was researching the story, I saw in 2019, Channel 13 did one story about an individual who got a lien on his property because a surprise $3,000 trash bill. Fast
Ooh.
forward to 2021, the Review Journal did a story about there was an increased trend in property liens and foreclosure lawsuits from Republic Services. Nothing happened in the interim afterwards. So we are now in 2023. We've seen this skyrocket and still nothing is really being done. So my simple answer is because They can. And I think that also goes to why they can give a canned statement 2 times in a row, because I think it's a simple notion of PR, just like stay quiet and do nothing and hope the story goes away. And
Mm-hmm.
history has proven that right for them, unfortunately. And so
Mm.
that's why I think they can ramp up, because they can. There's not much attention to it. They can try to wait out a news cycle that does draw some attention to it, but there's no mechanism in law that prevents them from doing this. This is legal practice.
Right. So they're in their mind just, we're within our rights to provide you with foreclosure. And like we mentioned before, they have to continue providing the services regardless of whether or
Yes.
not you pay. Obviously, we want a functioning trash service, but I'm trying to think about, like there has to be other and better solutions that Republic Services can employ instead of foreclosing on people's homes.
Absolutely. She told me that she was offered because she inquired, she was like, okay, like if I do owe something, one, I want to see my bill. So,
That part is the part that is the most irritating.
yeah,
These people cannot access their bill. So it's like, okay, if you don't remember your password, you can't log in. Or if it's shut down, you can't log in to see whatever your bill was. And then they won't send you a physical bill. So how are you supposed to know how much you have to pay
yeah.
if they won't send it?
That's like, again, such a unusual case for them to access bills. But even in the situations where customers can access bill, it's confusing and they don't know what is the original infraction, like how much you owe versus what are fees and like late fees and interest. Like it's hard for them to like look at the physical number. And even Rebecca said, like, so what was this like $500 in 2004? And like, I had like 10 years of interest in fees grow this
Ooh.
into eventually getting into 10 grand plus 3 grand attorney fees is like, but she can't get any direct answers on that. That's frustrating. So yeah, a lot of people want to know how much it is and how much of that is interest and fees.
Right. Let me tell you about my Republic Services experiences, okay? So typically we'll put our cans out like the night before and like our HOAs, and they're actually trash. But anyways, we'll put our trash cans out side by side. And I used to put them like pretty much touching one another. Actual Republic Services put a note on ours to say, stop putting your cans so close to the car. So there's a car parked on the curb and then the two trash cans, but they weren't far enough away from the car, I guess, for the arms to pick up the bins. But if somebody has time to hand write a note and put it on the
Yeah.
bin, I just feel like would kill y'all to just let the driver put a little note on there that's like, bitch, you owe me money. I don't know. That's what I would do. You owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just feel like, put me a little note that's like, hey, you should probably pay your bill, sis. I feel like that's not too much to ask, especially since they're clearly capable of leaving you a lovely handwritten note. These are my
Or
feelings.
just blast Rihanna while driving down, bitch, better have my money.
Right, just
like...
drive down, have the Republic Services just at 8:30 in the morning with the crane sound. I'm with it. I feel like, why not? I'd rather that than you foreclose on my home.
Right? It brings up the question how we can make this process easier for customers.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a story about absolving people from what they owe. It is about how do you provide information to customers about what they owe and work with them to ensure that they pay it before you kick them out of their homes.
Or tell them they owe $900 a month to pay down a debt because, yes, you have an extra $900 a month to spend.
Yes. And so that's one thing we haven't mentioned here is Rebecca told me that she asked about a repayment plan out of curiosity, and she was told $900 a month. And I actually have seen that someone emailed saying that they were offered like a $600 plan a month. I've seen that in some other reporting, and the 2021 story that they're offered like a $600 repayment plan. And who has that type of money? And so there's just a lot of follow-ups about how can we make this process better for customers rather than Republic Services and how much leeway they have in this.
So we'll keep an eye out on it and see how this thing goes. Hopefully there can be some changes made. Well, MJ Lyle, thank you so much for being on CityCast Las Vegas, and thanks for keeping us up to date on these stories.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's my pleasure.
And now for a little news before you go. CCSD says it's protecting the integrity of its own investigation by refusing to release records from the incident with the CCSD police officer slamming a child to the ground near Durango High. But the Review Journal, which requested the records, says CCSD isn't complying with Nevada's public records law. Meanwhile, A bill now before the legislature would create a new class of cannabis retailer, pop-ups. They'd be restricted to 21 and over events and festivals. Supporters say it would open the weed industry to smaller operations that can't afford a lounge. 21 and up farmers markets, anyone? That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you learned something from the show today, go ahead and send this episode to a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care. Yes, I know. It's like fingers crossed. I feel like I said at the end of most episodes about social issues. I'm just like, I
Fingers
hope
crossed. Good luck.
things get worked out.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Do the sign. Okay.